is time. It is time to brew your best beer. The 2017 SJPorr Challenge Gold sponsors. Bouncer, keeping the dregs out with their inline filter for homebrewers. The Brew Bag, simply the best way to brew great beer in your home. Yakima Valley Hops, with over 140 hop varieties available. Omega Yeast Labs, supplying homebrewers with high-quality yeast. And a special thanks to our silver sponsor, BrewTubers Online Brewers Club.
Good evening. It's time for another SJPorr beer. We're into round 2. Round 1 was quick, only 2 beers, and we've got 2 beers for round 2. But what beers those were in round 1? Delicious. And I have another beer. Better cover up that code there. I have the Rose Tea Amber Kellerbier 4.8%, and that has got Gladfield Pilsner, Munich, Joe White Chocolate, and Weyermann Melanoidin, and hops are Spalter and Saaz, and it's fermented with USO4. So, or SO4, you know, the English one. So yeah, this is obviously an English ale yeast with, I can't get that bloody tape off. Good one. Yeah, I thought I'd get the tape like sorted, but somebody said today you should always tab the gaffer or tab the gaff. Anyway, I think we're in. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so it's an English yeast with a German style beer and German hops. Good history. This has been in the fridge for quite a while, but I've had it out for well over 20 minutes now. Yes, I've been doing a little bit of reading. A Kellerbier was pretty much a beer that was designed to be kind of drunk green, rather than some of the longer lagering times on your traditional German beer. So yeah, I gave it a fairly aggressive pour at the end, not a huge amount of carb. A little bit murky, but there is some clarity there, and what a beautiful colour. Really nice red. And just a very thin bit of carb there. Well, I say carb, it's definitely well carbonated, but it's just got a very thin head on there. Yeah, it's very sweet smelling and maybe a little bit spicy and quite floral. So yeah, smells delicious, smells like some German hops, and yeah, I'm going to dive in. Well, that's interesting. Really sweet. It's got some nice malt in there and a little bit of roast almost. When I say roast, it's more like a biscuit, toasty, quite a dry sort of a finish, but yeah, a little bit of spice. So I'm getting, it's a very interesting combination of those floral kind of, I guess they're non-juicy hops like you'd expect from American or possibly New Zealand hops. They're just very restrained, noble hops. There's an interesting play between the Joe White Chocolate, which is, I'm led to believe, an Australian kind of chocolate roast malt. You've got that paired up against like a sweetness, and almost, although I said the noble hops, is almost kind of a juicy, slightly sour thing going on. Yeah, so it's very interesting that pairing. Super refreshing. I keep going back for more. Just a very interesting beer. I mean, to be honest, I'm a little bit in my depth in terms of drinking a beer like this. I personally have brewed up some richer malty lagers, and I've brewed up some kind of thinner lagers, but something sitting in this range is something I haven't done before. I think possibly, like I was saying before, that fruitiness, I think some of that is coming from the USO4, the English ale yeast, because that can kind of produce some sort of fruity esters. And I'm wondering if this has been fermented at sort of the higher end of that range, just to bring out some of those interesting characters. Because I'm kind of getting, the more I think about this, the more I'm getting almost like an English bitter. And having some of that roast, which is not necessarily an English bitter, but having the darkness of the roast and the melanoidin and a very sort of light background, I'm getting a bit of an English ale thing too. Really nice beer, Stas. One that requires a bit of thinking, and that's what this challenge is all about. In particular, it's round 2 challenge. Round 1 was pretty straightforward. Round 2 is kind of putting two incongruous things, such as an English style ale yeast up against German noble hops and a kind of a multi melanoidin mandatory grain bill. So cheers. Alright, final impressions. Geez, I bumbled through that review, but yeah, very interesting. I keep saying interesting beer, but to be honest, I've never had a Kellerbier. All the reading says that this is on point in terms of it being a very lowly carbonated, small head, and slightly cloudy. It's basically an unpasteurized, unfiltered green beer, and it does kind of have that English ale. Definitely getting with that yeast and just that low carb. I'm getting almost like an English bitter kind of vibe off it. But overall, very nice beer. It's got a nice tanniny dry finish. I think he might have it does say rose tea. I'm not sure what that means, but in some of my reading, a few people actually oak some of this with a bit of an oak tea, just to get that kind of dryness that would be reminiscent in historical barrels. So, geez, hardest review I've ever had to do. A lot easier to mark a pale or a lager, but I'm glad you set me up for this style of beer, Stas, and really enjoyed it. Cheers. Forward to this. I poured it up before, but got called away. I did pour up a really nice head. It has subdued quite a bit, but it is fairly well carbonated. Really nice colour. It's black, but there is a tiny bit of brown. You possibly can't make it out in this light, but I can see a little bit of reddy brown on the edges. Looks great. Aroma, getting some really big chocolate. That's the first thing I get. Chocolate and sweetness. If we're having a look at Grant's original gravity 1063 and final gravity 1022, 30 IBU, that's a bit of a trick. Come out with a really big gravity to begin with, original gravity, and then not letting it ferment out or mashing high to get that 1022. So there should be some really good body on that, and a very reasonable 5.4%. His recipe in his 25 litre batch: 2.4 kilo of Pilsner, 2 kilo of ale malt, 600 grams of melanoidin, 500 of chocolate rye, 500 of Munich, 250 of dark chocolate, 200 of medium crystal, and a bit of Tettnang thrown in the boil and in the middle and towards the end. Sounds good. Let's see whether it tastes good. I talked before about the gravities. Big body on this one. Really nice and chocolatey. Super smooth. No booze. Definitely picking up on that rye there. That chocolate rye. It's got to be an ingredient that I need to use. It almost gives it that oily kind of slickness with a little bit of roast and of course some yummy chocolate. About the only thing I can critique on this beer is it's a little bit sweet. I think it could be a little bit more towards the kind of savoury to be a bit more balanced, but I love sweet things, and this is a cracking beer. I've had a porter from Grant before that was an imperial porter. I think it was about 8 or 9%. So, in keeping in a similar vein, it's a big bodied beer without any oakiness or anything like that. It's just a very, very delicious, sticky porter. I can definitely pick up the melanoidin. That kind of, I get a slight spicy, biscuity kind of taste off that one. I've used melanoidin obviously in my round 2 beer, but it all works together. It's a really nice malt base. As I say, maybe a touch too sweet, but shit, this is a delicious beer. And yeah, this is the last beer in the SJPorr New Zealand and Australia hub for me. Really enjoyed it. Been a couple of spectacular beers from Grant and Stas, and what's been really neat is that we've all kind of worked with the constraints, which weren't really constraints, that were set by SJPorr in terms of ingredients we had to use, and not being able to double up ingredients in consecutive rounds. So yeah, it hasn't been that tricky. Most people will only have to brew 2 beers, so it's only 1 more beer than you normally have to do for an SJPorr. But obviously there's a 3rd round for whoever gets through, and based on the competition I'm not so sure I'll get through, but yeah, we live in hope. And in fact, if I did, I'd need to actually brew a 3rd beer. So yeah. Anyway, we'll soon see. If you've ever been put off by doing the SJPorr, thinking it's a hassle, it's not. The people that run it have been brilliant. It's been really good having sort of no hub this year. It's just been Grant, myself, and Stas getting work done. And there's been quite a lot of work behind the scenes from Josh, Man Be a Pig, so I really appreciate your work on that. And yeah, all I've got left is to score this beer, crunch my numbers, and send them off to Josh for scoring. So thank you very much to these 2 brewers. Thanks Stas, thanks Grant. And I would be sad that there's no more SJPorr beers left, but I do have some beer mail from both these 2 gentlemen, so I'm looking forward to tucking into them. So I ended up with about 6 beers after all that, so really appreciate that. Hope you enjoyed my beers. Thanks a lot. If you've ever thought about doing the SJPorr, just get involved next year. And I'd really like to try your beers, and hopefully you like to try mine. Cheers.